Matt, can we start with you and
Yep.
ask you what key challenges have you faced in setting up and running your forest school post-lockdown?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that having adult help. We've primarily done our forest school through parent helpers and everyone else coming in, which obviously due to COVID they're not allowed to at the moment. Our timetable is such that we only have 2 members of staff on some occasions able to come out with a whole class of 30 children, which obviously isn't, you know, the perfect ratio, but it's what we've got. In fact, in some days I don't have a teaching assistant with me, and we've had to rope in governors and midday meal staff because they're the only people that are still coming into the school as a bubble, and able to be extra pairs of hands. So in some ways that has sort of caused its own challenges. In some ways it's been really beneficial because having the governors there to be able to support you and see what you're doing, and then to be able to advocate for, you know, why is it so important to do forest school, it's been really, really good.
That's really nice that problem's actually become something quite beneficial then.
It has, and you know, governors tend to not want to get too involved in the school. They are always there to offer their help and support, but we've turned around and said yes please, and you know, I think we've got 1 out of our 10 governors who's signed up, but that's brilliant because you know, he's on board and he'll be able to share back to the rest of the governing board about, you know, the benefits of forest school. The other thing is sharing equipment. I think is the biggest thing. The use of any of the tools or any of the den building equipment, the sticks and the things. I don't put any hammocks out. It's just sort of the hard tools which can be sterilised, and I have to sterilise those in between sessions, which gives me less than the amount of lunchtime that I need to eat my lunch. But that's a price to pay really. And actually,
Matt, sorry to interrupt you, but how many sessions might you, like how many different groups of children might you have during one day?
So I have two sets of classes. So I have one class up until lunchtime, and then I now have another class after lunchtime, which is brilliant because I'm able to actually work out all 6 classes minus reception, who have only just started in the last week. All 6 classes are being able to access some form of forest school, even though it's forest school light, but it is being outside, it is, you know, free play in the natural environment that we've got.
And how are you actually managing to sterilise the equipment? Which bits of equipment do you need to sterilise, or what are you able to sterilise in that time?
So I've limited the amount of tools that I take out. So I take 2 folding saws and 5 knives, and that is it. I've really pared down the amount of equipment that they're allowed to use, just because of me needing to then have eyes on them, with only 2 of us out there. But also it means that I can sterilise those fairly quickly. I also have a siphon pump which allows running water for washing their hands and things. So that's sterilised. Any of the containers that they use, the water buckets, the fire buckets, that sort of stuff. I'm the only one that uses the fire gloves to do the fire, if we have a fire even, because obviously they're soft material and can't be sterilised that easily. So it's just a question of adapting those bits, but I haven't found that too difficult. We've got an eco-friendly sterilising solution, which I take out with me. It's one they use to spray down all of the outdoor climbing equipment and things like that. And I just have a dip bucket, dip it in, dip it out, leave it to dry over the course of the lunchtime, which does sort of, it's not an arduous process.
Brilliant. Matt, thank you very much. That's really, really helpful and really succinct as well. Thank you. And then Helen, your setting is slightly different. You're working freelance. And if I can put the same question to you, what are the key challenges that you found in setting up post-lockdown?
So I'd say there's probably 3 key challenges, but they sit in, there's practical challenges and then there's professional brain ache challenges, I think. The practical side of it was, the main one was viability. How many children were we able to run with? And whether that would bring in enough to actually fund the forest school's existence. Obviously with that, we were bringing into account social distancing and the ability to keep children apart, the ability to keep children, we were following the out of schools settings guidelines from the government, which came into play the day that schools broke up. So we operated over the summer. So we were allowed 15, but actually our fire circle didn't allow for that, and 1 metre plus, which is what we decided we could go to. So a bit of advanced trigonometry, and we worked out how many we could have, but it wasn't viable. So a solution to that was we went and sought funding and managed to get some for the summer holidays, which was just such a privilege to see children mixing again for the first time in months in an outdoor setting. But the other practical issue in that was staffing. It remains to be one, because we obviously, particularly at the moment, we're needing to bend with the wind. The situations change a lot, and we've lost a member of staff recently because her son's having to self-isolate. So that brings in a similar question to Matt's, really, although we're very fortunate that we're operating on such smaller numbers and we can still maintain fairly good ratios. So yeah, viability, I suppose, is the big one certainly for us as a setting that's run by freelancers. The brain achy side of it, so many questions, so many answers that you're searching for, and so many decisions to be made. I think that's the biggest thing. We're quite used to it as forest school leaders, making decisions, but we're dealing in normal situations with risks that we see and harm that can happen that's immediate and obvious. Whereas with COVID, the risks are, you can't see it and you can't measure it. You can't put a likelihood on COVID transmission, particularly because the R number changes and you don't know who's coming. So yeah, dealing with risks and managing risks where we can't see the result of things, and deciding what we do to mitigate those and how we go about that, I think. Yeah, so many decisions to be made. Solutions wise, we found our answers to decisions came through probably 4 channels, I suppose. The guidelines put out by government, although very often that meant searching through 8 or 9 different documents. Supporting documents from the FSA pointing in direction of guidelines that maybe we hadn't seen before. I suppose it depends on the site and the setting as well. Our decisions were very much based on our site, the fact that we weren't particularly financially supporting anybody to start with, so we didn't have to, we weren't losing money. Well, we were losing money, but we weren't unable to employ people. And then personal decisions as well, people's health coming into it, people's worldview, people's ethics, people's how much are we willing to do to make this happen, and do we feel safe, kind of thing. So many decisions.
Thank you, Helen. And also, I was really, when we were speaking together just earlier, one thing that you said to me really resonated actually, was that issue of the confidence, having the confidence to get out there, and really answer those questions. Well, is this actually safe to do this? Back through lockdown, yes. And I think those waters are becoming slightly less muddy as we come out. Perhaps not, maybe not, but yeah. Yeah,
I think we were helped because we were halfway through a block of forest school when lockdown happened. And we are a setting, we're a workplace, we lease the land, so effectively almost own the land, but not. But so we had like a phased reopening. So we started out by just locking down and individually going in and watering our saplings. But we had to do a risk assessment for that even. And then we started as a workplace because we decided we needed to start building our composting loo if we were going to come out the other side. So I risk assessed as a workplace just for a few work people. And then we wanted to do a survey, so I risk assessed for that. So we were very lucky, I think, in hindsight, to have this phased reopening and a phased succession of decisions to make. And I think if I was reopening now, I would probably try and do it in a similar way, because to just open in one go would be terribly daunting. Whereas
Yes.
we've been able to do it bit by bit. And I think that has been a real help.
Helen, thank you very, very much for your input, and thank you, Matt, as well. Okay, so we're about to break out into breakout rooms. So from each group, it would be good to have some verbal feedback from somebody and some written feedback. That doesn't have to be from the same person, but you may choose for it to be the same person. The written feedback, if that can go into a Word document, and then that can be easily uploaded into the chat room, and then we can share with people more widely as they join us after the event, so to speak. Nick, is there anything else? Oh, and I think, where are we, 2018? So I think, sorry, how many have we got on the...
well, we're down to 103. We were on 106. We're down to 103.
So do you think we probably need a good 15 minutes for the feedback, do you think? Should we come back in at 8:45 or 10 to 9?
Yeah, so if I give you 30 minutes.
Perfect.
And then we've got 12 minutes then to discuss. And if we run over a little bit, we run over a little bit.
And yes, and then people can carry on chatting, can't they?
Hey, it's Forest School. Let's go with
it. Fantastic. Thank you, Nick.
Okay, folks. So you're going to go into the breakout rooms. Just a quick note before we go. The breakout rooms are not recorded. So you can have private chats there. And the only information that comes back out of them are the things that you record and bring back into the main room. Okay, so feel free to chat freely. We aren't recording you in the breakout rooms. And that's about it, really. Just follow the on-screen instructions once I press the button.
Thanks, Nick. Everyone should be back. Okay. Welcome back. And do we have someone from breakout room 1 who would be prepared to feedback briefly? I wonder if we can ask maybe to perhaps focus more on the solutions that you've come to, because my guess is that that's going to be more helpful to us as a community. And also, obviously, if we get to breakout room 10 and there's nothing particularly new that's been said, that you're honest about that, rather than us hearing the same thing sort of 7 or 8 times. I hope that's come across okay. So room number 1, have we got someone from room 1?
Nope.
No. Shall I move on to room 2? Ah, Lindsay.
We didn't discuss who would speak, but I'm happy to share. I took a few notes.
Thank you.
There was some good conversations about personal boxes of resources set up. So for those leaders who had perhaps maybe a small number of students coming, they were able to prepare either a box for the children to put all their things in and collect their waterproofs and that sort of thing. Others talked about preparing a bag of resources for each individual child with things like scissors, string, a peeler, a pen, and a magnifying glass. That has its problems in that you then need to sterilise everything in the bag after each session, which the children may not have touched at all. So that's an option, but has its problems. Some good solutions for sterilising. Dunk buckets seem to be very popular, where children or parents place items they've used in the dunk bucket with a sterilising solution in the bucket, or just a washing solution in the bucket, and then it was taken out of the bucket and put on a mat to dry, and then perhaps sterilised with a sterilising solution or anti-bac spray. We had good conversation about gloves, because washing the rigger gloves is really tricky. Those in sort of freelancers with individual children coming, they had asked those parents to purchase a pair of gloves for their children so that they were coming with their own gloves. So that solved that quite quickly. In schools, it's quite different. And I'm in a school, so I'm contemplating how I provide gloves for all the children and wash them between sessions. some good hand washing station ideas. I'd never heard of a tippy tap. Several people seem to be using those. They had a bucket for children to rinse their hands and rinse the mud clay off before using a clean water tap and soap, followed by sanitizer. I use clay all the time. My other job is I'm a potter, so my children would never forgive me if I turned up without clay, but obviously clay is a very difficult thing to sterilize. So they talked about using takeaway pots and having individual portions of clay set ready, so the children could come and collect a tub and they'd have their own clay and they wouldn't have to be putting their hands in a bag. And essentially the biggest challenges for the group were reduced staffing and managing tools and things.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you very much. So, and Lindsay, were you breakout room 1 or 2 there?
1.
You were 1. Okay, thank you. Is there anyone from room number 2?
Oh, hello. Yes.
Hi, Lucy. Thank you.
Hi. I will try and keep it quite brief. We were just talking about how site dependent some of these things are. So things like with the fire circle, you just need to work with what you've got and figure out. We were talking about some crazy trigonometry, sorting out the fire circles there, working out how many people you can fit around them with your distancing policies. And with distancing, I liked somebody saying the real positive was that some of the staff were getting much more involved than they had done previously. So freelancers going into school were finding that the staff had to really get in there and get their hands dirty because the freelancers themselves are keeping a 2-meter distance from the children, which was actually creating a bit of a different dynamic in the group, and that was a real positive. So something to look out for. Somebody was saying that actually harking back to the forest school rules, and particularly of caring for each other, was a good way to be talking about the distancing. So just making sure that we're looking out for each other by giving each other some space was a really positive way of looking at it, because we were talking a lot about, I'm sure most people were, the difficulty of enforcing distancing rules without actually terrifying the children, because it's big, it can be quite traumatic. And then we were talking about with adults and potentially with secondary school children as well, having a code word like the fire safety code words that a lot of settings use. So saying, you know, a dragon or whatever, if you go into the fire circle, having something, we use porcupine or hedgehog if you want to stay native, just to say, I'm not feeling comfortable with how close you are, to back off a little bit, because it can be quite an awkward thing. And if you bring it up at the beginning and say, it's absolutely fine to use this word to signal that you need a bit more space, that can be useful. And the other thing was that a lot of settings are familiar with the blood bubble concept. So then just spreading that out across more activities and just saying, oh, you know how to keep your distance with a blood bubble. That's exactly what we're going to be doing with these other activities as well. And then just one other interesting positive was that people were finding that they're taking a lot less kit into their sessions, and actually the children are loving it and are coming up with some quite innovative play solutions based on natural resources, and a lot more natural art and stuff coming out of it. So it doesn't have to feel like a constraint. You can go in there and have a really positive experience. With
the things are slightly sort of pared down a bit more, almost simplified, and actually that leads to a bit more creativity, doesn't it, sometimes?
Exactly, yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lucy, very much. Yes, and someone said, I love the hedgehog word. I do. That's a great idea. Thank you. Breakout room 3, please. I got a wave from somebody. No, I shall move on then to breakout room 4.
Well, I was in breakout room 3. Julia did a fabulous job of making notes, and I was waving at Julia. Are you happy to share? Are you happy to share the notes, what you talked about? Is that okay? Thank you.
Sorry, did you mean that you were going to read them, or you wanted me to?
You're on mute, Sarah.
Sorry. Are you happy to, Julia?
Oh, you'll do a better job of it than me. This is my first time. I'm allowed.
You don't have to if you don't want to. That's fine.
You're all right doing it, yeah.
I'm very all right. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. We to be honest, we're a bit naughty. we had several people in our group who were feeling a bit wobbly, and we understandably, I think, and we also had people who were not yet out running sessions and really wanted to be running sessions. So our conversation ended up, and maybe it was partly because I was cheeky and guided it that way, to thinking about, actually, do we feel, and how comfortable are we talking with our groups about how we feel? How are we modeling that sort of looking after ourselves and acknowledging when something feels tricky, so that other people are able to do that? So I think that was quite a big focus. And we also noted the amount of energy and effort that is going into trying to keep people safe, and how we might not sleep very well. Because if we're lying awake in bed working out how we're going to make sure that somebody doesn't get coronavirus tomorrow, you know, our sleep is going to be fairly rubbish. So how are we looking after ourselves with all of that? So those are the kind of areas. But Julia put some great notes in the chat box. So thanks, Julia.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I'm very conscious that it's 9 o'clock and we've only heard back from, was that 3 breakout rooms rather than 4? But I think it's probably quite important that we have that the moment of choice at 9 o'clock when we said we would. Those that want to continue sharing can do so, and those that want to have sharing of another nature with Sarah can do so. So Nick, can you remind me, do the people who want to stay talking about problems and possibilities of post-lockdown forest school, do we stay put, or do we leave this meeting, or what do we do?
The ones that want
meeting,
to,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, the ones that want to carry on talking stay here. So
Okay.
when the thing comes up for the breakout rooms, then just deny it, or come back into this room to carry on chatting. Or if you want to go with Sarah for poetry and community sharing, then you accept the breakout room and go with it and stay there.
So hang on, so we're all going to leave and some of us come back?
Well, sometimes it gives you a choice. It depends how you've logged on. Sometimes it gives you a choice, sometimes it doesn't.
Okay.
But if you go and you don't want to, and you want to stay here, then you need to leave the breakout room, but not the meeting.
Okay.
Clear as mud.
And there's no poetry with me, I'm afraid.
Oh.
So if you want to talk about how we can use nature to understand our emotions and help the children talk about it, that's what I'm going to set off a conversation about. And we'll find things in our house that can help us do that.
That sounds fab. Can I come with you?
Will everybody be in this room now that wants to be in the room, or should we leave
I think
it?
so.
Fantastic. So we heard from 3 breakout rooms there. I'd be really interested to hear if there were any other points that were discussed that haven't yet been sort of aired at all, or anything that anybody wants to contribute, really.
From our group, something came up about cooking.
Mandy? Yes, in our room as well, Matt. Go on.
Mandy, do you want to take it, because you were chatting about it?
Yeah, okay, yeah, sure. So I'm for Freelancer, and I do a mixture of toddler groups and school sessions, and cooking, big part of what we do. So I've continued to do cooking, but put in a number of safety procedures, I suppose. So it's trying to, for example, doing marshmallows. Each child would have an individual bowl, and I'd sort of use gloves to give them their marshmallows and their biscuits, and then they could toast them, they deal with it themselves. And I also, I don't know if people know Miss Elvie's Curious School of the Wild. I think it was yesterday or earlier this week, she put on a really brilliant, it's a Facebook group, and she put on a really brilliant, they do a lot of cooking, and she put a list of all the procedures that she was putting in place to make it COVID safe. And I found those really, really helpful. So I think that's a good tip to have a look and read that, because I think it is important, isn't it? I mean, the kids, like one of the ladies in our group was saying, you know, kids are bringing packed lunches, and thinking, well, it's not quite the same, is it, as sitting around the fire and preparing your own food and all that. It's, you know, it's a big part of what we do. So if we can
Mandy, I wonder if you'd be able to put in the chat box the name of, yes, here we are, someone's just put, what was the group again? Are you able just to put the details of the Facebook group there?
Yeah, I will do. I think I've got the name right.
Thank you.
I'm trying to find that post as well, Mandy. So if I can find it, I'll.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, that would be good.
Again.
I saw that, Mandy, and it was really, she had some really good suggestions, because their whole ethos is eating out, on the move, and doing stuff. The food thing worries me a bit. So it's helpful to hear what people are, because I still want to cook, and the children want to cook, and the parents want to cook. So it's whether they bring their own jacket potato and put it in the fire, or have their own billy cans and use those. I don't beyond doing the
Stephanie,
little things.
Can I ask you what aspect of the cooking is it that's sort of the most concerning to you?
For me, it's always the community thing, because it's just getting the children interested in food and eating and self-sufficiency and things. So I've always let them handle all the food, and yes, we wash our hands and things, but I've been dragged up like the 20 seconds, you know, drop it on the floor. I've not been too worried. You know, we wouldn't share each other's knives and forks and things like that. So it's going from being quite relaxed to then thinking, well, you know, I don't want somebody else sneezing in somebody's food and things like that, because there is a risk there. Mm-hmm. Trying to put the risk to the back of your mind and carry on and be positive and generate a really inviting atmosphere where we leave that all behind. Because I think, you know, I'm not young, and but I don't want to be an advisor and a face mask and things like that and gloves. That's my personal choice.
Stephanie, I think for me, I think you've hit upon something that I found, I think for me was one of my biggest challenges with the whole process, was that I almost had to inhabit a space that I'd almost learned to not inhabit as a forest school leader, which was that whole thing around risk, where you're kind of good cop, aren't you? Because the safety net is always actually that children don't want to hurt themselves, and so you can kind of allow that risk, you know, within a framework of safety. And all of a sudden, that safety net was gone, because that suddenly just is not the sort of risk that we're talking about, and you can't be the person anymore that goes, go on, what could possibly go wrong? You know, it's just completely, the whole frame of reference completely changed.
It's the washing, you know, constant. Have you washed your hands? You're going to eat. Have you washed your hands? Have you washed your hands after you're eating? Have you had a wild week? Can you wash your hands? I feel like I'm a constant. Yeah, but on the other hand, it's part of their everyday life as well. So there's a balance, isn't there? I think. But that was what bothered me with the cooking. Was that is I've kind of in my mind positioned all the risk with all the equipment, using the ropes, and we do use hammocks, and I've got my quarantine boxes and worked out procedures. It's the cooking and saying to the children, no, you can't touch those pots and pans, and you know,
Could you, Stephanie, for the time being, couldn't you do, you know, like if you do pancakes, like I do pancakes, I do eggy bread and things like that, and basically I do it, and then they have their own plate just for the foreseeable, or you do something that's quite simple, you know, not as complicated as, you know, they would have to cut something. So, you know, you're the one that's got the clean hands and you're touching as little as possible. I know it doesn't involve the children as much, but, you know, in these times, maybe the things we have to do, they're still cooking, they're still eating around the fire, but you're doing the bulk of it. I know I work with really young ones, so they couldn't do so much of that, but, you know, trying
that's the dynamics. I don't work with that, I mean, I will be in a while, and that puts a whole nother thing, but it's taking away what they've been, the freedom they've had, that freedom to just be in charge of what they do, and to, you know, use the fire and cook and things. But then again, I'm using it as a brainstorm really. If they're bringing their own things, and if they're cooking their own food, and they've got their own billy can, they can sneeze in that as much as they like. So maybe.
I wonder if there's any strength in sort of naming and owning it with them, saying, you know, I really, really want to do this with you, but this is what I'm really worried about, and have you got any solutions for it? And
well, this is what we did, and they came up with the face mask and things like that. But yeah, it's just, I think it's my biggest point of worry, that, and using, yeah, no, that's my biggest worry really. I think I just yeah.
But I think if they're at school, I think children have got used to now, oh yeah, we can't do it that way at the moment. I think they're, you know, they're getting into that mindset.
Yeah, see, I have school on one hand, and then you have home eds on the other side. So you have a...
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I haven't had the home ed experience, but yeah.
That's not horrible. It's just that they're more...
No, it's just different. Yeah.
But generally, I think even with new children today in the home ed type environment, very aware of 2 meters, keeping distance and things. So children are, you're right, very aware of, you know, just talk to them as adults really, share your concern and find a way through it really. Yeah.
I'm just curious as well. There was, I think John had originally put on the original post on Facebook, there was like a third question, and I'm just curious if there's anybody out there who hasn't actually been able to restart yet because of an obstacle that's been put in their way, maybe either by a local authority or a particular school. And I'm just wondering if there is anybody out there who's just not able to actually get out there yet.
I haven't been able to start my after school club because it was a mixed year group, and now everybody is in year group bubbles. And my children go to the school. If I ran it for year 4, my son can't come because he's in year 2. So I've left it for now. I don't want to bother the school too much because they've got so much going on anyway. They're doing, thankfully, thanks to my presence there in the first place, they say they're doing forest school even though they're not trained, but I'm happy because they're getting the children out in the woods, and that's all I can ask, even if I'm not doing it.
Thank you, Melissa. And I see that Louise Porter has her hand up apparently. Where are you? Oh, there you are, Louise.
Hi, yeah.
Hi.
I was going to say I actually work for the local authority. So I haven't started anything yet. I've so far had to jump through so many hoops in respects of reports that went right up to the chief executive before I'd even got to the stage of actually thinking about what I am able to do. So I can't imagine what it's like for anybody who's trying to work on local authority land if I'm struggling that much internally. So yeah, trying to work and navigate my way through it's been really difficult.
And is there any light at the end of the tunnel for you, Louise? Is there anything that we might be able to help you, sort of a hive mind here and now?
I think I've got to that point, and I think I found it really, really helpful tonight that I can go away now and have more information, because my next stage is what I have to do is actually almost go through, and I might use my own children to do this with me, go through the process of every stage, and I have to photograph every single stage of kind of how the forest school process will work from arrival right the way through. So it's been interesting to get some of the elements like the dunk buckets, how you're going to deal with gloves, that sort of thing, and actually see how people have been doing it in practice. I've had that really helpful tonight. Thank you.
Not at all. Thank you, Louise.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, Joshua.
Hi. I haven't been doing. I'm just about to start doing forest school again. I'm a teacher and I'm actually doing it with a different bubble, but we're going around that because I'm not going to be with them indoors. That's how we're thinking about it. But I normally send a kind of risk assessment to each of the parents to sign to say they're happy for me to be using knives and fire and food with them. And I've been trying to kind of update that today, and not sure how much. I'm kind of saying I'm going with the school's policy, you know, the school's updated risk assessment, but I'm wondering if anyone has put anything specific in risk assessment so they're sharing with parents.
I've got one that I've based on the FSA guidance, but taken it from from the original guidance the FSA gave out in their format, but with the schools specific guidance from the government. I think it was probably the one from the 10th.
We're not that far, are we?
So yeah, if you want to have a look at it, I can link it. I can send it to Nick.
Great.
He can put it in the chat.
Is that based on the July thing that they had on the FSA website?
So the format's similar, but the actual guidance is taken from the 10th of August. So that was the first of however many different variations of guidance that came out just before Bank Holiday Monday and all that sort of stuff. But it's the one that we're using at our school.
I did something because I've got my foot in both camps, and I did one for the school, exactly the same, Matt. I used their original when they FSA published that, and I used that. And then I referred to the school's policies that they were putting in place with their, so it would have been the bubbles and the hygiene procedures and stuff, because you're effectively running a little school within a school, aren't you, sort of thing. And then for the places I work for outside of the school, still took the same thing, but then I kind of shut my eyes and thought about the whole process of the parents arriving, using those guidelines, and just gathered it more into. I just found it easier to group things like hygiene and arrivals and equipment, and what you're going to do if somebody's ill, and what happens if a member of staff's ill or child's ill, and those things. But the FSA was a really good starting point. So it's worth looking at their one. It's tricky, isn't it? And also I found, I don't know about you, Matt, did you have to update it much? Because not much has really changed this last group of 6 thing, really. Everything else is still in place, isn't it?
Yeah, and in fact, there's not much that's changed between the 10th of August and the 12 different variations that were released in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So yeah, from our point of view, that's why we've decided that it's an exercise in futility to try and do more risk assessments, analysing more guidance and all that sort of stuff. It's just pointless. We're sticking to what we're doing. We're sticking to what we've said at the beginning of the school holidays, because that's when we were doing the risk assessments.
Joshua, does that help at all?
Yeah, that does help. Yeah, I was looking at that one, but it'd be great if Matt, I don't know if you could put it on the chat or something.
I'll email it to Nick, and he can put it out with the notes.
Thank you very much.
Is there any other bits maybe in breakout rooms feedback that wasn't covered in the feedback that we heard?
I'm aware I'm quite a chatty person, so I don't want to dominate, but I hadn't given it too much thought until people raised the question about gloves. So I've moved off the food, and now I'm thinking about the gloves. And again, we have one bubble, because we're thinking about buying more gloves. So one bubble in the gloves, the amount of ratio of gloves you'd have, but we don't have gloves for every single person. But I don't know what people think. I've kind of worked it that we're all in a bubble, we're all sharing the same thing, so we'll share the gloves, and then those gloves get put in Tuesday's box and then not used till next Tuesday, sort of thing.
Sounds all right to me.
Pick some holes, because
that's what I'm going with, Stephanie, as well. I've got my group starting tomorrow. It's so exciting. My first time out since March, so I'm really excited. A little bit apprehensive, like everybody here, otherwise we wouldn't be here chatting about this stuff. But yeah, because they're coming once a week and I'm not running any other sessions at the moment, that stuff is just theirs. It's just that one kit. They are a school bubble. It's only small classes anyway. I'm bubbling with my volunteers, so there's just me and those people delivering to that group. So that's it. We're just going to quarantine the kit. You know, you don't do anything where you've all got to wear a pair of work gloves, do you? So as long as
no, we had that conversation, and it's always the left-handed ones, because everybody's right-handed, so you want the left-handed ones.
So I'm in a lucky position. I haven't got to think about washing gloves. With the training, where we've got people who will need access to gloves, we've actually given everybody an individual kit of stuff that it's really hard for them to share. So they're getting some wool and some string and a fire striker each and a pair of gloves and some other things, and they'll just have that as part of their training kit then, so we don't have to provide that as shared resources. So I know somebody else had mentioned that earlier in the chat at the same school. So yeah, I think you're good. I think personally you're good for gloves. So yeah.
Because I was also worried about the pencils and things, because again in the schools they are giving, you know, they've got their own pencils. So I was thinking more for the drop, you know, the parent, mother, you know, so the people, it's not the regular, they are regular because they're booked in blocks of 6. But it's just thinking it through, isn't it? And then
can I just ask about gloves? Are people wearing gloves because you use them with tools anyway, or are you using it as a way of stopping the spread of COVID? Because me personally, I never use gloves with tools, because I don't use gloves myself. I don't find the grip very well. But what purpose are you using the gloves for now? As a protective measure? Because I would rather just, if I have to share a bow saw, I'd rather just wipe it down with spray for the next.
So we have.
Oh yeah, no, just for the
gloves. Oh, sorry, Stephanie, carry on.
For work purposes, not for sanitary purposes, hygiene purposes.
Yeah, we just have gloves as part of the kit. So if someone needs to or feels happier wearing a glove on their non-working hand doing something, then they can.
Okay.
But no, we don't. I like you, Melissa. I don't like wearing them.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I think the children need them most of the time. Fire gloves is different. We're not doing fire for the first couple of weeks. 1, there's some new children coming out. 2, it's boiling. And 3, when we do fire, they want to sit right next to you for a whole hour, and I can't figure my way through that one. So yeah, fire gloves. But again, because I've got the single kit for that group, it'll just it's essentially quarantining it then, and they'll, you know, nobody will touch that kit till next week.
So I just wanted to ask again about cleaning things, because I was thinking with my mud kitchen, I thought I'll just dunk all my buckets for 15 minutes until the next group comes, and then I was like, oh no, they've got metal handles and all my trowels, so I can dunk the handles, but just to make people aware. That's why I'm quite interested in Matt's eco sterilising formula, but you can't use something like Milton on metal, and you can't use bleach on metal either. So when you're dunking your kit, please be aware of that actually it might just be better to give metal things a wipe over. But yeah, I'm still interested in the eco sterilising stuff.
I'll have a look in the caretaker's cupboard tomorrow. The other thing that we've got, which I've been using, is specific wipes that are for computers.
Yeah.
They're sort of a little pull-out, like wipe thing in a tube that are used to wipe down all our iPads and our computers between uses. So I've used those on them as well. They seem to be okay for the metal. But yeah, I'll have a look, and I'll get Nick to put it in the notes.
I was shown something today. It was a Dettol spray. I think it's Dettol, that is suitable for some things that you just spray on and then just leave it on the surface. But again, it says don't use on paint and this, that, and the other, and I just know by the end of the year all the stuff is just going to be cracking and rusting and stuff.
Well, that's the other thing I was discussing about equipment. People were saying about, oh, I'm quarantining my rope, but If anyone's been to a theme park recently, they're not wiping down the roller coaster after every person. You're gelling your hands, you're washing your hands, and I'm treating my rope swings the same way. It's like a playground. You wash your hands. I'm going to I could stick it in the washing machine, but I'm not going to. It's like a playground. You've got to wash your hands. And when people's hands are muddy anyway, unless you've got children with special needs who are going to put their fingers in their mouths, things like toddler groups, when your hands are mucky, you're not going to put them in your mouth. And I do a song and I say, we're not going to put our fingers up our noses, are we anyway? But I think you just have to be sensible about it and look at what other people are doing as well, what the theme parks are doing, what the big wildlife trusts are doing.
Exactly. It's interesting, Melissa, because in our breakout room there was just frustration, actually, the inconsistencies that exist between, so it's okay for kids to do that, and again, with there's no wiping down happening in between, but this needs to be done a different way. Quite a level of frustration really about that.
We've got parents that are really on us at school because so and so's in a bubble and they're not meant to be meeting with that person, and then as soon as they're at the school playground, it's, oh, are you going to the park? Oh yeah, we'll see you there in 5 minutes. Literally the park just down there's 50 children and parents all the way around the outside.
I think as long as we're doing what we feel is right, because I keep asking myself, what will people see when they come to my sessions? They will see I've got my hand washing station. They will see that my families have their own mats. I was worried about the whole numbers game, and I thought, I was saying, if I have to include all children in my toddler groups, I can't run it, because if someone has a baby next week, I can't turn around and say, I'm really sorry, I know you've just had your baby, but you can't come now because I've got 31. So I figured I'm doing it much more safely than the theme park I went to in the Crazy Golf last week. If someone wants to come and count my numbers and fine me £100, at least I can say, well, now I know, but I've done everything far safer than the experiences I've had with my own children. And don't get me started on the ice cream man that's parked outside my school at the moment, because I want to report him, but then I'm worried about karma, so.
It is just that, isn't it? It's really reassuring to talk to a lot of people, to hear, actually, when you boil it down, it's common sense, what you feel comfortable with as a practitioner, what you know, and obviously you get told, but really it is down to the hygiene. And I mean, I don't want to be in some of the pubs or the restaurants I've seen, and or even, to be frank, even the school.
And I'm afraid to say it, that I'm the same, but I'm afraid to say it, at some point, so statistically, one of us here is going to have someone with COVID. It's going to happen, but at least we can say, I put everything in place to ensure.
I would like, my dad is 84 and going through a lot of chemotherapy and everything, and we did everything he wasn't supposed to go out and about or whatever, but he actually, and his partner, had COVID in February. You can put lots of things in place, and you just got to feel that you're doing your best and that you can stand up and say, I've done the best I can.
Yeah.
And still put a reassuring, fun environment, because if I can't, then I don't want to do it. I think that's my thing.
Definitely. And also it's interesting, I can remember sort of, I think, right just as we were coming out of lockdown, really asking, actually, what are we left with? What can we do? Well, if we can't touch this and we can't be close to anybody, and we can't sort of oversee tool work safely, and we've got, what are we left with? What can we do? And actually, I think we've heard tonight that even where it seems that there are certain things that we're not happy doing, be that cooking or be that tool work, and I appreciate that some people are able to do different bits of that and feel okay about it, but actually, even without some of it, the simplicity actually is almost like a springboard for other stuff to happen as well.
That's so true, Free, because when I did my training, I always remember my mentor coming, and I got everything all ready, and she said, really, if you can't run your forest school session without a rucksack and a few bits, you know, the outside is supposed to be doing it for you, which is difficult if you've got the school environments and just the playing fields and things. But
yeah,
there is something to really cut right back, and children will just, you know, when we just before lockdown, it was like, Steph, take the kids out, and it's like, okay, well, I can't take anything, and we just went to the woods, and the kids just did what they did.
I think if there's anything positive to come out of lockdown, I was discussing with my very frightened neighbour, who's younger than me and still hasn't left the house, is that there's a lot of creativity has come out of this. People writing books and realising, actually, do I really need this massive wheelbarrow of stuff? Can I just go in with a piece of tarpaulin or a couple of sticks and string? Yes, you can. It's just, what would you do if you didn't have all this stuff? You can still run your sessions. People are just so happy to be outside. Kids just enjoying running around.
Absolutely. That's certainly the experience that I've had over the last couple of weeks. Yeah. They're just so happy to be out there again with their friends.
Just 2 meters away.
I wish.
Look, you're 2 meters away. It doesn't matter about
It's
them
like,
so much.
That's 2 meters.
So I'm aware it's just gone 9:30. Are we, Nick, are you back with us? Sarah?
I'm with you always through.
Let's hear it, Nick.
The other group are just finishing off. The last one is just talking.
Brilliant.
So we might run a tiny bit over.
Okay.
And then I'll call them back through as soon as this one's finished. I don't want to stop her halfway.
Sure, no problem. We were talking in our group as well a little bit about some of the creative solutions we come up with for tippy taps and hand washing and stuff. Are people out there creatively hand washing?
The kids love the
Really
tippy taps, though.
They do.
Yeah.
Good for the balance.
Yes, there's a lot of physics in it, isn't there?
My little ones, the year ones this morning, could really struggle to work out how to stand on the stick and make the thing tip over. It was they were really all over the place. I thought, I hadn't seen this as a tricky thing before.
I was really pleased when I got mine made. I was really chuffed because I didn't really think I would be able to do it. And it was just really good. And the water lasted all day as well, which I was really pleased about.
Fantastic.
It's just the muddy soap on the rope. That's
yeah.
But I like the dunking because we used to rinse the hands in buckets anyway before. But hearing everyone saying that they rinse off anyway now before washing with the soap, I think, well, I'm going to start doing that again, because we were literally just expecting them to rinse with the tippy tap and then wash with the soap. So it's that'll help, definitely. Handy.
Thank you. So Nick, are we all back in the same space?
We are all back in the same place.
Fantastic. Sarah, are you, am I landing you in it, Sarah, by asking you to end us collectively? Or do we all just wave at each other? Or
No, let's end collectively. I wonder if you would all be very kind and just put a couple of words into the chat box that really say how things are for you right now at this moment. So what have you got from the group? What have you got from being connected? Are you feeling connected? How is life for you? And then these words will all get collected and Nick will share them with us. So type in your word and we'll say thank you so very much. And please do join us next time. And don't forget, you can sign up. I think Prue said at the beginning, you can sign up for the bulletin so that you're in touch with us, whether you're a member or not. We'd love you to stay in touch and join us next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
They can also, sorry, Fru, diving in there quickly. They can also join the MailChimp group for these webinars. They're now monthly, but there's a MailChimp group, so you get a dedicated mail out from the FSA. that tells you when they are.
Thank you very much, Nick. So great to have everyone with us. Thank you especially to our lovely people, Helen and Matt, who shared their experiences, and thank you, Fu, for leading us, and Nick for the fabulous technology. So good evening, everybody. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.